Welcome to Desperately Seeking the 80s. I am Meg.
And I'm Jessica. And Meg and I have been friends since 1982. We got through middle school and high school together here in New York City, where we still live.
And where we podcast about New York City in the 80s. I do Ripped from the headlines.
And I do pop culture.
Jessica, do you remember last week I was asking if Gail Green wrote novels?
Yes, miraculously, I do remember something that happened last week.
Well, BFF of the podcast, David, wrote in asking if we had read her porn novel, to which I responded, no. Have you?
I think I know about this. What's the title?
I don't have that. He said, my mom had a copy on her shelves when I was growing up, so yes, I gave it to a foodie friend a few years ago. We used it to do dramatic readings. It's very of its time. So obviously I'm sold and I feel like we need to order this book.
I think that we have to do dramatic readings. Is it called Dr. Love?
I think there are a few of them, actually.
I know the one I was thinking of, Insatiable.
There you go.
That's it. Well, there is a fine line between food and sex, is there not?
So fun.
Yes, I want to do dramatic readings too. We should get David in here too.
Oh my God, that would be so funny.
It would be hilarious. Oh my God. Yeah, so thank you, David, BFF of the cast.
My engagement question today, Jessica, is did you ever make crank phone calls?
Duh. Yes. And in fact, I have a crazy story about
fun.
Prank phone calls. So I promise you, this really happened. Okay.
I believe you.
But I also want you to know that what I'm reporting as having truly happened is also through the distorted lens at the time of a kid.
Okay.
So this was like, I don't know, 1978, 79. So my friend Nina and I were prone to doing crank calls. And I remember sitting in her mom's bedroom and we were just like calling and doing like, you got Prince Albert in a can? Let him out. Is your refrigerator running? You better catch it. All of those, like straight out of the, like prank call phone book or whatever. So we were all keyed up and already in hysterics. And we called some number and we got called someone. I pray that Nina is listening to this because I need her to corroborate this. But we called and started just laughing. And whoever it was said, "Who's this?" And we went, "Who's this?" And he said, "John Travolta. Who's this?"
What?
And we were like, "Ah!" and hung up. I'm quite sure this guy was like Seymour Smalls or whatever. Like he did not say John Travolta, but in our heads, that's what he said. And we simply did not recover and never did prank phone calls again.
That is so funny. Okay, so you never targeted somebody to make their lives miserable.
Well, I can't say no because girls, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't recall, but I'm so afraid of getting called out by someone who's going to like find me on Facebook and be like, "You absolutely targeted me, you nasty." So I don't think I did. Did you?
I don't have a strong memory of doing that, but
I take that as a yes. I take that as I'll tell you in private how I tortured someone for a year.
It's interesting, though, now, how do they do it?
They don't. It's an entire world of entertainment that has been shut off for today's children.
It's sad. Well, today's story was actually recommended to us months ago when we first started doing the podcast by Barbara Goodwin. And I had it on sort of the back burner for a while, thinking like it was just going to be kind of a simple story. Oh my God, it is not.
Who's Barbara Goodwin?
She listens to the podcast.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you. That's really exciting. Should I just settle back and get ready for some storytelling? Or am I going to be like really engaged and excited?
I think you're going to be engaged. It's crazy for Cocoa Puff's story.
I'm ready for some cuckoo-ca-choo.
My sources are Vanity Fair, New York Times, New York Post, New York Magazine. At 11:24 a.m. on May 27th, 1988, Bess Myerson left Hill's department store in South Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and headed toward her gray Lincoln Continental in the store's parking lot. 2 security guards from the store stopped her and searched her purse and a shopping bag she was carrying and found 6 bottles of nail polish, 5 pairs of earrings, a pair of shoes, and several packages of flashlight batteries.
Wait, Bess Myerson? Bess Myerson?
Bess Myerson. You're going to learn some things about Bess today.
Who was Miss America, Bess Myerson?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay. Now, since Bess had not paid for these items, which would have cost her $44, she was arrested, fingerprinted, photographed, booked, and released on $150 bail. As embarrassing as this was for the 63-year-old former Miss America and New York City Cultural Affairs Commissioner under Ed Koch, it was pretty much the least embarrassing thing she was being accused of in the past decade. She was in Pennsylvania to visit her lover, Andy Capasso, at Allentown Federal Prison, where he was serving a 4-year sentence for income tax evasion. He was also scheduled to stand trial with Bess for conspiracy, mail fraud, and obstruction of justice in just a few months.
Wait, she was already out on bail when she stole the stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Bess. Wacky.
Wacky, right? It wasn't that long ago that Bess was a major player in New York City politics, helping Ed Koch get elected in 1977. She was always by his side during the campaign and deflected rumors that he was gay. He, in turn, rewarded her with an appointment as commissioner of the DCA. But behind the scenes, Bess was a mess.
I love that.
Bess Myerson was born in the Bronx, raised speaking Yiddish in a Jewish housing settlement, and became the first and only, to this day, Jewish Miss America. And that all happened in 1945. During her year reign...
Interesting timing for a Jewish Miss America.
Yes. I think it was on purpose.
I'm thinking it's really, really good PR for the Miss America pageant.
Right. But it backfired. During her year reign, many sponsors dropped their support for the pageant, and a number of publicity events were canceled because Jewish people were not allowed in the hotels and country clubs.
I have no word. I mean, what am I going to say to that?
Right.
It's just ridiculous.
She was an accomplished pianist, and she played on the vaudeville circuit after her reign. And ultimately, she became a regular on the game shows The Big Payoff and I've Got a Secret. She married twice. Her first husband beat her, and her second husband berated her, but it was her lovers who had the biggest impact on her life. In 1978, Bess met John Jacobson at a dinner party. Some backstory. She had entered politics a few years earlier when Mayor John Lindsay appointed her Community Affairs Commissioner. Lindsay had been accused of being insensitive to Jewish people and thought Bess could help get him off the hot seat. She loved the job. She loved to catch businesses cheating customers with scams or selling fraudulent merchandise. And she was incredibly popular with the man on the street while also hobnobbing with the rich and powerful of New York City. She was living large when she met John Jacobson. She'd just gotten Koch elected mayor, and the two hit it off. John broke up with his girlfriend, Joan Rea. It's spelled R-E-A.
I would think Ray because of the actor Stephen Ray.
Okay, I'll say
Right?
Ray. Joan Ray. So he broke up with her to date Bess, and for a while, all was good with the world. John had an apartment at the Carlyle.
Swank.
I know. And a seat on the New York Stock Exchange.
Double swank.
He was by her side during her race for Senate in 1980. But it was about this time that the wheels fell off the wagon. Bess thought she was a shoo-in for the Senate based on her popularity and celebrity, and she didn't bother to have a platform or prepare for interviews and debates. Elizabeth Holtzman smoked her in the primary, and the loss hit Bess hard. She was also very distracted during the race because John Jacobson broke up with her. He had started seeing Joan again. And around this time, Joan's phone started ringing off the hook.
I'm in heaven with this bad behavior.
The caller would always hang up. She was getting up to 50 hang-ups a day.
A day?
And then she started getting letters, 26 in all, signed only "More follows." The letters were threatening and sometimes obscene. Quote, "We know all about you and your long-time screwing. What you don't know is that you were getting the biggest screwing of all." They were sometimes anti-Semitic. Quote, the money. Isn't that why your mother is encouraging you to get your due? Every WASP mother wants that for her daughter." Then Joan's mother started getting letters. And Bess started showing up wherever Jacobson and Joan went. At restaurants, on the beach in East Hampton.
Not on the beach in East Hampton.
Apparently, they were lying on the beach in East Hampton, and Bess Myerson walked up and started doing jumping jacks in front of them. I mean, Bess.
Tone it down.
Sometimes she would be sitting in the lobby of the Carlisle when they got home. This, by the way, this is while she's running for Senate. One day, a Bonwit Teller shopping bag was delivered to the Carlisle.
Bonwit.
Buried under the tissue paper in the bag
Was it poop?
was poop.
No.
Yes.
No.
Jessica, why did you answer that so
Because it
fast?
was the only thing that could be like the most absurd, horrible, gross, childish, dumb thing to do.
She did that.
She gave them a poop present. A Bonwit poop. That is so pathetic.
Yes.
That's just pathetic. That's like you might as well wear a sign around your neck. I've gone nuts.
And she's running for office? I mean, it is so crazy. Joan called the police. I mean, she didn't think it was Bess. She was like, there's no way it could possibly be Bess Myerson. She's running for the Senate right now. That's too crazy. She knew she had a stalker, but she didn't think it was Bess.
Isn't this a great lesson in, what is it, Occam's razor? No matter how improbable the answer seems, if it fits the facts, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It was an Occam's poop. I'm obsessed now with putting poop on the end of everything. Sorry.
So the police traced those crank calls to 2 phone booths, one across the street from Bess's apartment and the other near Gracie Square. And while a report was filed, no police action was taken. And it kind of sounds like John Jacobson wanted to keep all of this very much in a private place because it was...
Well he would.
Yeah.
And should.
Just a little embarrassing. When she realized that she was not going to get back together with John, she started dating Andy Capasso. Andy, who was mob adjacent, operated a sewage contracting company, sewage, again with the poop.
Oh my God.
And lived with his wife, Nancy, in a $6 million Fifth Avenue duplex. I know. No, he was very well off, but he wasn't invited to nice parties.
Because he was connected.
And also, like, he has a poop contracting company.
I mean, if I was going to have a cocktail party, that would be the number one person I'd want on my list.
But it irritated him. They weren't invited to these parties.
Well, I mean, at the time, wasn't it also that people whose names ended in vowels didn't get invited to parties generally?
I don't know. I mean, we've got Mario Cuomo. Anyway, point is, Bess provided entree for Andy. Now, he was living with his wife, remember?
Oh, yes. How could I forget Nancy?
And Nancy didn't know what was going on. She was completely clueless, while he and Bess just had an affair pretty much in the open. His biggest client was New York City, which paid his company $200 million to fix its drains and pipes. Huge contract. Bess had spent $1 million of her own money on her failed campaign, and Andy was eager to make her whole, apparently in cash.
Did you just say make her whole?
Stop. Okay. When Nancy found out about the affair with Bess, Andy beat the crap out of her, which kickstarted.
Andy.
Oh yeah, no, Andy's not good. Andy's not a good guy, and that kickstarted a very, very messy divorce.
Ooh.
Now remember, Andy is rolling in bucks, right? But he offered to settle with Nancy for $500,000.
What?
Considering
Please.
they were worth 15 million, Nancy refused. In the meantime, Bess was spending every weekend at the Capasso's West Hampton home wearing Nancy's clothes and jewelry.
So Bess really lost the thread big time. So she's gone berserko.
Well, we'll talk about it at the end. I'm wondering if she was ever sane.
Quite right.
Yeah. And then it's about this time that Ed Koch appoints her commissioner of the Department of Cultural Affairs. Like, what up? That seems so strange to me.
Well, he needed his beard back for whatever reason.
I mean,
Who knows?
who knows? And Bess invited Justice Hortense, and this is what another pronunciation.
Okay.
Gabel, Gable?
Gabil?
Okay. Justice Hortense Gabile?
Gabil.
Okay.
Gable, Gabile.
To a reception given in Bess's honor at Gracie Mansion because she'd just been made commissioner. 75-year-old, legally blind Justice Gable was thrilled. Like Bess, she was a girl from the Bronx, and it had been years since she'd visited Gracie Mansion. She was known as a compassionate judge who supported civil rights and women's causes, and she was very worried about her daughter, Sucrete. Sucrete had been looking for a job for over a year. She's 33. She was living with her parents and battling depression, and her mother was desperate to help her get on her feet. Soon after the reception at Gracie Mansion, Bess started calling Justice Gable regularly and invited the whole Gable family over for dinner in West Hampton. And she offered Secrete a job as an assistant in her office. It was an entry-level job paying $19,000 a year, and Secrete was academically overqualified for it, but beggars can't be choosers. A month after Secrete started working for Bess, Justice Gable reduced Andy Capasso's alimony payments to 1/3 of her original ruling because, as you just figured out, Justice Gable was the presiding judge in the Capasso divorce.
Shame.
Yep. It took a while before rumors started swirling, but once Richard Johnson of Page 6 wrote about these strange coincidences in the Post, Koch was forced to name a special prosecutor to look into the matter, or felt pressure, not forced. When it all came to light, Bess and Judge Horty Gable resigned from their jobs. The trial was a circus, with Secrete agreeing to testify against her mother after the prosecutors told her her father had described her as mentally bright but emotionally disturbed and with limited talents.
Wait, so she testified against
her mother
because her father was a jerk to her.
Yeah.
So she just
the whole Secrete story is like we could talk about her for the next 30 minutes. She is a loony.
I remember her name. Didn't she get up to some weirdness on her own? Was she prosecuted for something? Like, I remember her name. There's no reason to remember her name.
I don't think that there was any additional legal mess that she got into, but she was the key witness. And for this trial, she was crazy. And they put her up on the stand and she wore these, red wigs and too much makeup that was like smeared on her face. And she fell madly in love with one of the prosecutors and would like wink at him while she was on the stand. I mean, there was a reason why she hadn't been able to get a job.
Okay, I have to admit that I now have to search. Yowza. Oops. That's not a good look. Oh, poor thing.
And she loved all the attention, but didn't pick up on the fact that everybody thought she was just loopy. She would hold press conferences in bars.
She had electroshock therapy.
She did, and that came out in the trial. So, yeah, like basically nobody really believed a word she said. Ultimately, Bess, Horty, I love they called her Horty, and Andy were acquitted, primarily because the jury hated Secrete. And it turns out, listen to this, that Ed Koch knew about the letters and the poo bag when he made Bess commissioner, but dismissed it as a lover's quarrel. But during the trial, he was finally forced to admit Bess Myerson has fallen from grace and what she did is deplorable. I'm aghast at what she did.
It's so cringy and sad.
Yeah, it is cringy and sad. But also, why did she get away with it for so long? I find the whole thing so shocking. It seems like that would be career ending, but instead she kept getting these appointments, even though people knew about it.
She was useful. That's the short answer. There was something about her that was useful. And with most useful people who are also a little unhinged, there comes that moment when you're like, well, the expiration date has just hit for you. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
Yeah.
And I think people are also really, they are not inclined to immediately assume the worst of people when they should.
Yes, it should be pointed out that she was impossibly elegant and well-dressed. You would just never think that a person like that would do anything like this. But also interesting that with this corruption, both of those women, it wasn't about money. It was about helping the people they loved.
Well,
I mean, no excuse, because good God.
Here's a photo of Sucrete that we need to put on the...
Okay, send that to me.
I will.
Good Lord.
So what happened with the nail polish?
Oh, she paid the fine and it was swept under the rug.
So is Bess still amongst us?
No, everyone is dead except for Sucrete, who lives on 69th Street and has a parrot on her head, apparently. She's like the bird lady of the street. Why are you looking at me that?
The phrase, she lives on 69th Street and has a parrot on her head, is not something that one usually hears. And if I had known that, I think that my image search would have been a little different.
And Bess Myerson did pass away, and she had dementia, apparently, and was living in California as, I think, a recluse.
Oh, here's Sucrete and her parrot.
Oh, good. Send me that too.
Here she is with her parrot.
And Andy Capasso passed away, and John Jacobson passed away. That's a whole other scandal. He had a love child. The daughter is an actress, and she knew her whole life that he was her father, and he paid for her to go to Dalton and Northwestern. The deal was just don't tell anybody I'm your father. And he had, a whole other family and a whole other life. He's the dad of another actress who plays Chandler's annoying girlfriend on Friends. Her dad is John Jacobson.
Get out.
Yeah.
Janice?
Janice, yeah.
That's fabulous.
It's all crazy stuff. Anyway, she finally, when he died, the other actress, the love child actress, came forward and exposed him because he had promised her mother that she would be in his will, and he did not put her in the will. So she's like, deal's off.
Sordid lives.
Seriously,
Sordid
John.
lives.
I mean, what's up with him?
Not nice. As this has unfolded, I recall that she was not a favorite person in the media. I knew that there was some taint about her, but I would never have been able to tell you what it was or why. I mean, the reason that now that I'm sitting here with the poop, maybe that's why I knew it was poop, because somewhere in the recesses of my brain, that was because if I'm going to hang on to anything, it's going to be poop in a bag. Oh my God. From Bonwit with tissue paper. I mean, that's, if you want to, it's like the most elegant version of a flaming bag of poop on the doorstep. Ding dong flame, ever. Oh, she also wrote, in order to cover her tracks, she wrote crazy letters to herself. Yeah, that always works. It didn't. No, the police were like, you wrote these and we can prove it. Good one, Barbara. I thought when it was suggested that, I knew that there were controversies, but I thought it was all financial corruption stuff. And in fact, it wasn't financial corruption stuff. It was crazy. And we love crazy on this podcast. I love crazy. More crazy. We can find all the people like Bess. What you got? Now, I don't know if this is the beginning of a mini series of my own presentations. I don't know. I'm trying things out. we'll see what happens. But, we've been talking a lot during my segments about New York in the 80s and the effect of the AIDS crisis.
Yes.
And what I think is going to be really interesting for people is to know about some of the incredibly talented people who did not survive and who knows what they might have done. But these were really young guys, 20s and 30s, who were just hitting their stride creatively and then died. So my 80s connection to this particular person who I'm starting with is the day he died was August 3rd, 1983.
Okay.
His name is Bruce Wayne Campbell, better known as a recording artist named Jobriath. He's either someone who you are obsessed with and know a lot about, or zero. I thought it would be fun to just play a little part of one of his most famous songs. So Jobriath, nay, Bruce Wayne Campbell. I first became aware of him because I was reading some articles after I saw Velvet Goldmine, the movie that came out. It was a Todd Haynes movie in the 90s. And then I just sort of became obsessed and started researching him. And there's this great documentary called Jobriath A.D. that you can find like on YouTube. It's very weird and out there, but he has a lot of the interview takes place in his home, which I will get to in just a minute.
Okay.
Because one of the great things about Jobriath was that he lived and sort of was in the world of a lot of the things that we talk about. He was one of those characters who was around. Anyway, he was a child prodigy. He lived in Philadelphia. On piano. And he was brought to the attention of the conductor of the Philharmonic in Philadelphia. He was gay as gay can be and was always evidently gay. He went to Temple University briefly and then dropped out. And in the 60s, he was drafted and he was like, I don't really like the military. This stinks, and went AWOL.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And he was eventually dragged back and was in a military psychiatric hospital. And who knows if he actually went bananas or if he was just gay. But interestingly, that foreshadowed the bit of musical theater that actually put him on the map. Do you remember in the musical Hair from the movie, there was the guy with that beautiful blonde hair, Wolf?
Yeah.
Played by Don Dacus. Yes, I know these things. It's not normal. I'm admitting it. Well, that look was actually what Jobriath really looked like.
Okay.
And in 1969, he originated that role of Wolf
Oh, wow.
in Hair. Yes. And he was amazing. People thought he was just incredible. But he got fired after a while because he was so good, he was upstaging the other actors. He was considered a distraction. But he was this unbelievable fire hose of talent and love of musical theater. But when he went into the psychiatric unit, he started working on his own music.
Okay.
And in 1971 or so, he started making the rounds to record companies. And he also had a band. It was, I think, called the Pigeons. And they were briefly signed to Decca Records. And then they fizzled out. And he tried to do stuff with his music, all the stuff that he had written when he was in the on the ward, and was in San Francisco and not really making any progress, and wound up making some of his money as a prostitute. So there he is. And at the same time, just to put this in perspective, 1971, 72, our friend David Bowie was finally breaking through with his opus Ziggy Stardust. And for anyone who knows really anything about David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust is this otherworldly creature who, is super theatrical and rock and glam. In 1972, Jobriath, still in California, is approached by Carly Simon's manager and realizes, like, this kid is unbelievable. And he tries to get Clive Davis to sign him. And Clive Davis is like, he's a mess. And he's like, he might be, but he's amazing. So he got him signed to Elektra Records in the biggest deal for any rock record at that time. And still, no one has heard of him.
Huh.
Right? This is fascinating. It's weird. So he gets a $500,000 signing deal, and they have plans for him. And he's so theatrical, and he's obsessed with 1930s movies and theater and songs. In fact, at one point later in his life, he goes by the name Cole Berlin, as in Irving Berlin and Cole Porter.
Okay.
So he has these grand designs, like everything is over the top, and he's going to debut at the Paris Opera, and he's going to be dressed like King Kong, and he's going to go up the Empire State Building, and then he's going to turn into, I don't know, like Claudette Colbert, like some craziness. And but he can back it up. He's got the chops. However, when people start to get word of him, when people start to hear about him, one of the first things they hear is that he is very boldly saying what no one has said before as a rock star. I am rock's truest fairy.
Okay.
So he is the first openly gay, not flirting with the concept rock star. David Bowie, in interviews right around the time that Ziggy Stardust came out, was flirting with the press, trying to say that he was bisexual and all of that. So when Jobriath appeared as the real deal, the British press went nuts on him, tearing him apart, shredding him. Everyone said that he was stealing from Bowie.
Oh, wow.
He even had...
interesting. Like he was ripping him off?
Yes. And he had a song on his first album, self-titled, called Space Clown.
Okay.
And just the fact that he used the word space buried him. But he was amazing, and he looked incredible. And if you see, it's the reason I'm talking about Velvet Goldmine at the beginning, is that there's a scene when you see Christian Bale's character buy the album. What's his name? The faux David Bowie. God, what's his? Maxwell Demon album. It's you open the album, and all on the inside, it's just crimson velvet, and the Jonathan Rhys Meyers, like all in his skin is painted white. That's exactly Jobriath's album cover.
Okay.
So I was like, who is this guy? What is going on? So that came out. People went very nuts against him. And because he was gay, which you would think is insane, because David Bowie and Mark Bolan of T-Rex, so they're all in the glam rock world, were pretending to be gay. But if you were really gay, not so good.
Okay.
The album doesn't do what they think it's going to do. He records another one, does not do well because there's no machine behind him anymore. He's back to work in the streets.
And he's still in California?
No. All this time he's in New York.
Oh, okay.
He, puts together some cabaret stuff, and the other albums come out. So they're out in the world, but they're not really doing anything. And he winds up living in the Chelsea Hotel in a pyramid at the top on the roof of the hotel. And if you see this movie, you'll see it and you'll be like, why am I not living there? And it was such a great moment of seeing how New York used to have these spaces where, you could just live there. It wasn't, you needed to have a gajillion dollars to have a view. And artists were really finding weird and wonderful places. In fact, years and years ago, my God, this must be, 15 years ago, maybe more. A friend of mine from publishing, his wife was very into vintage clothing, as I have always been. And he was like, you've got to come with me. And I think we went to the Ansonia, like some fabulous, really old apartment building. And this woman lived in what was the attic. Or like the servants' quarters when the building was built, with walls knocked down, and she had a piece of the roof. And it was all a shambles. But it was amazing. And she had clothing racks on all of the walls with just endless amounts of vintage clothing.
Crazy.
And it was like, people really live like this.
Right.
So he was one of those people. In this documentary, he talks about how he was very hard to place because he really was a bizarre mix of glam rock and Broadway. And I was listening to the album today, in preparation for your arrival. And I was thinking how he was so ahead of his time because the rock opera was what he actually perfected. He got the sound perfectly.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so forget like the jukebox musicals that are out now, like everything from Frankie Valli or whatever,
right.
But musicals that really do rely on a rock sensibility, but they straddle that line. He did it first. Anyway, he was living in the Chelsea Hotel when he died. He was 36 years old and really faded into total obscurity. And I think, as with most artists who are left out of the limelight for whatever reason or disappear, it takes one person to bring them back, who is a fan. And I think that Todd Haynes had a lot to do with raising consciousness about Jobriath again. So he's still kind of a fringe character, but more people have heard of him than they had before. And I highly recommend listening to all of his albums, but the first one, the self-titled Jobriath, it's just a miracle of music making. It is very sad that he left us, but we have this legacy.
What's the name of the movie?
Velvet Goldmine. And it was
it's
originally
actors. It's
It's actors. It was Todd Haynes originally wanted to do a David Bowie biopic, and he wanted to focus on the Ziggy Stardust years. And David he said no. I might want to do something with my own life. Thank you very much. Todd Haynes was not to be dissuaded, and he went ahead and made up his own composite character. And so he drew a lot from different glam rock figures, but this main figure played by Jonathan Rhys Meyers, he has this alter ego. It's not Ziggy Stardust, it's called Maxwell Demon, and he goes through much of what David Bowie went through and with his wife and all of that in those chaotic 3 years around the release of that album and then the time that he killed the Ziggy Stardust character. And so because he had to pull all of these other references in, Jobriath is one of them.
Well, now I'm very curious about, was he living alone when he died?
Yes. They're not, my feeling about talking about all of these people, these amazing people who died way too young, is
Yeah.
not to bring us down. It's to celebrate them and recognize that just because they didn't wind up maybe doing everything that they might have, they still left behind some incredible stuff that is worth uncovering again.
Absolutely.
And I am a big giant fan, and I love Velvet Goldmine, and it speaks to all of my queerest Oscar Wildean and glam rock sensibilities, which is exactly what Jobriath does.
Well, I'm excited
listen.
to do a little bit of research myself. Thank you.
So August
Jessica.
3rd, 1983 is a date that we will remember.
So you have an idea for our tie-in?
Well, yes. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Bess Myerson was a glamour addict,
Mm.
as was Bruce Wayne Campbell. I think that he was born the year that she was Miss America.
1945?
Yes.
You're right. There you go.
There you go. That's the tie-in.
Well done.
So speaking of music, we've received some feedback that our field trip theme song is getting some love.
It's getting some love.
So I think that we might have to come up with another ditty. What do you think?
Okay, sure.
I think we need to start coming up with the the podcast album.
That would be hysterical.
I don't know what that would possibly be. It would just be like every song is about lunatics and poop and death and I don't know what. But I think there's something in there. I think we have just enough madness to make it happen. So watch this space.